They laughed in his face, in his own house, while his wife's hand slid across another man's thigh. But Martin didn't raise his voice. He just stood up, walked out, and quietly started burning their world down. What would you do if the people you trusted most mocked you to your face? Comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe because you won't believe how this story ends. The laughter echoed across the dinner table, not joyful, not warm, but sharp, slicing, condescending. Martin sat at the head of the table, staring into the untouched roast beef he'd spent 3 hours preparing. Claire, his wife of 8 years, was giggling like a teenager. Not with him, but at him. Her fingers casually brushed across Greg's thigh, the man sitting just 1 seat away, her co-worker, or so she'd always claimed. The sound of her wedding ring tapping against Greg's whiskey glass felt louder than the laughter. It was a small sound, but it hit Martin like a wrecking ball. He watched as Claire turned to Greg, flashing that smirk she used when she wanted to feel powerful. Greg leaned back, cocky, amused, and entirely at home in a house he didn't belong in. Martin's chest tightened, not with rage, but clarity. "I swear if you two flirt any harder, the curtains are going to catch fire." His voice was flat, not even sarcastic. Claire didn't flinch. "The door's right there, Martin. You don't have to stay." Greg laughed again, a laugh that wasn't even trying to be polite. Martin didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't raise his voice. He simply stood, calmly, reached for his coat, buttoned it with deliberate precision. His eyes scanned the room, the fireplace he built, the photos on the wall, the life he had built for them. "Thanks for making things clear." And then he walked out. No slamming door, no dramatic exit, just a soft click, like a final punctuation mark on a chapter already ending. Outside, the November air hit his face like a slap, but inside, he felt a calm humming beneath the betrayal. This wasn't heartbreak, this was ignition. And what Claire and Greg didn't know is that Martin had already started laying the groundwork months ago, quietly, carefully, strategically. They thought they broke him that night, but that dinner wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Martin didn't go home that night. Not to the place where her perfume still clung to the pillows, where her laughter still echoed in the walls like a haunting. Instead, he drove not aimlessly, but deliberately east, 2 towns over, to a wine bar tucked between a yoga studio and a law firm. It wasn't for the drinks. It was for the appointment. He sat alone at a corner table, dimly lit, his coat still buttoned up to his neck. The waitress brought water. He didn't order anything else. Not yet. At exactly 7:05 p.m., she walked in. Black blazer, no flashy jewelry, no smile, just a low bun, sharp eyes, and the kind of presence that made the whole room recalibrate. Rebecca Wyatt. She wasn't just a lawyer. She was a scalpel, recommended months ago by a colleague with a warning. If I ever wanted to dismantle someone legally and sleep well after, I'd hire her. She sat across from him without a word, pulled a leather folder from her tote bag, and slid it across the table. Martin opened it. Inside labeled tabs, itemized evidence, transactions, public records, property titles, joint assets, Claire Randall, Gregory Shelton, timeline of activity and deceit. Rebecca spoke without emotion. We traced overlapping expenses, personal withdrawals, disguised as business reimbursements, a consulting payment from your business account to Greg Shelton. Martin didn't flinch. He already knew. But seeing it laid out made it real. There was even a time-stamped photo. Greg's car parked outside a hotel room. Claire's credit card logged for a spa visit hours before. Martin's hands were steady as he flipped through the pages. "This is thorough." Rebecca nodded. "It's not personal, Martin. It's surgical." A waiter arrived with a single slice of flourless chocolate cake. Rebecca poured them both a glass of wine. She looked up, calm, composed. "So, do we post it tonight?" Martin reached into his coat, pulled out a printed photo, face down, slid it across the table. Her eyes flicked to it, but she didn't turn it over. He smiled, small and sharp. "Yes, post it." And in that moment, Martin wasn't a victim. He was an architect, and the demolition had just begun. Martin didn't watch the post go viral. He didn't need to. By the time he passed the gas station 5 miles from home, the photo had already done its job. It wasn't staged. That was the brilliance of it. No forced smiles, no overdone angles. Just Martin, in a dark charcoal blazer, mid-toast, a half smirk on his face, and next to him, Rebecca Wyatt, looking like elegance, weaponized. No tags, no caption, no drama. It wasn't a performance. It was a message. Claire saw it first. At 8:42 p.m., she blinked once, then again. The setting, the woman, that wine bar. Something itched in the back of her memory. She zoomed in. Rebecca's face stared back, unreadable, cold. Her first text came at 8:43. "Martin, who is she?" By 9 p.m., 5 more messages stacked on top. At 9:08, Greg called. Martin declined. At 9:09, Greg's voice came through voicemail, tight and clipped. "Listen, if that's who I think it is, we need to talk. Like, now." Martin smiled, deleted it. He didn't reply. Not to her. Not to him. He didn't need to. That single image cracked the illusion they had so carefully curated. They weren't the ones in control anymore. They just didn't know how deep the shift had gone yet. Claire's panic turned manic. Greg's silence turned tactical. Because Greg recognized Rebecca. She'd once buried an ethics complaint for him. Now she was clinking glasses with the man they thought was too weak to fight. And that terrified him. By morning, the silence had grown louder than any argument. Claire was pacing the hallway in Martin's old hoodie, mascara smudged, phone gripped, like a lifeline. Greg sat in his office, red-eyed, jaw clenched, refreshing his inbox every 30 seconds. The photo wasn't revenge. It was disruption, and the fallout had just begun. Greg didn't sleep. He couldn't. He kept replaying the image. Rebecca's silhouette, the wine glass, that calculated elegance he knew too well. She wasn't smiling because she was happy. She was smiling because she was holding a loaded file cabinet behind her back. By 10 a.m., Greg was pacing, shirt untucked, tie loose, phone glued to his palm. He tried to call Rebecca. Twice. Voicemail. Each time, "Hi, you've reached Rebecca Wyatt. I'm unavailable at the moment." He didn't leave a message. What could he say? That he was scared? That she knew too much? Then Claire stormed into the room, barefoot, wild-eyed. What the hell is going on? She shoved her phone in his face. The missed calls, the texts, the comments under the photo. People were noticing. Greg stayed quiet too long. Claire's voice cracked, half growl. "Greg, who is she?" He hesitated, just for a moment. Then, "Rebecca Wyatt." Claire blinked, stunned. "The lawyer?" He nodded slowly. "My lawyer." She took a step back like he'd slapped her. "What the hell is she doing with Martin?" Greg didn't answer. That's when Claire saw it. The fear in his eyes. Real fear. What does she know? Greg exhaled like it hurt. Everything. He sat down like his knees had buckled. Not from injury. From the weight of realizing they were no longer the predators. Claire stared at him, cold, calculating. "You said everything was clean." He didn't even try to lie. I didn't think Martin would do anything." And there it was. He said it out loud. They had mocked the man, dismissed him, laughed in his face in his own house. And now, the quiet man had turned the world beneath them into sand. Across town, in a glass office with frosted doors and a marble floor polished to perfection, Rebecca Wyatt clicked open a folder labeled GS Holdings, Private. She didn't rush. She didn't smirk. She simply read, highlighted, annotated. On her desk, a printed copy of a commercial loan contract, 3 internal memos, 2 redacted emails from Greg's own firm, and a photo of Claire, sun hat, wine glass, bikini, laughing, next to a very shirtless Greg. Rebecca didn't need to fabricate anything. All the evidence came from them. They had gift-wrapped it. She drafted an email with the subject, "Conflict of interest. Immediate action. Required." By the time Greg received the notification, the message had already been logged, time-stamped, and acknowledged by his firm's ethics committee. Greg's hands trembled slightly as he opened the email on his phone. It was short, surgical. Due to recent developments involving a prior relationship with opposing counsel and non-disclosure of material connections to a principal stakeholder, this firm is initiating an internal ethics review. He dropped the phone onto his desk like it was radioactive. Claire stood across the room, arms folded tight. "What now?" Greg didn't respond, just turned the phone around to show her. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Rebecca wasn't just some woman. She was the sword they handed to Martin years ago, and now he was wielding it with precision. Claire muttered, "She knows everything." Greg looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. "She has access to our accounts, to my LLC, the burner payments, the bonus shell transfers, the trust name." It dawned on Claire then. Rebecca Wyatt wasn't there for revenge. She was there to dismantle. And Martin, he wasn't coming back. He wasn't playing the hurt husband. He was strategizing in silence, and with someone who could bring down empires. The envelope arrived with a soft thud on the marble countertop. Black, heavy, sealed with gold foil. No return address. Just her name, printed in sharp, narrow lettering. Claire tore it open mid-sip of her coffee, expecting some HOA nonsense, or perhaps another guilt-tripping Pilates flyer. Instead, the heading stared back like a punch in the gut. Reallocation agreement. Execution. Copy. She froze. First page. List of properties. All now registered to Martin Randall, sole proprietor. Second page. Premarital agreement. Section 9.3. Infidelity clause. In the event of documented extramarital activity, all rights to shared assets are forfeited. Her hand trembled. She flipped faster. Page 3. Photographs. Time-stamped. Her, Greg, poolside, kissing, laughing. Martin's birthday. Claire dropped the folder, like it burned her palms. She had signed this. Weeks ago, rushing out to meet Greg, Martin had handed her a stack of refinance papers. She barely looked, said, "Whatever, babe," while checking her lipstick in the microwave. Greg stepped into the kitchen just as she reached the last page. His face pale. He saw the photos, the timestamps, the signature. Claire whispered, "He had cameras." Greg looked like he'd seen a ghost. She flipped again. Her signature. "He baited us," she said, eyes wide. He knew. Greg sank into the chair across from her, numb. "We played ourselves." And just like that, the kitchen was silent. No yelling, no panic, just the suffocating stillness of a plan executed to perfection. Martin hadn't needed to scream. He didn't need confrontation. He needed proof, and her signature. And now, he had both. Claire wasn't crying. She couldn't. Not because she was strong, but because even her tears felt bankrupt. Her hands trembled as she opened her laptop and logged into the condo trust account, the one tied to the second home they'd purchased. Martin's idea of long-term security. Error. Access denied. She blinked, tried again. Same message. Next, she opened the joint retirement fund portal. The screen flickered. Account closed. What? She checked her credit report. Flagged. Frozen. Her stomach flipped. Her fingers typed faster now, searching for anything familiar, any account, any trace of financial identity. But all roads led to locked doors. Even her work email credentials returned an error. Inactive. The illusion of control shattered like glass. She grabbed her coat, marched to the car, and sped across town toward their bank. Her heels clacked against the marble floor like warning shots. I need to speak with the account manager for Claire and Martin Randall. All of it. Savings, checking, property, trust. The banker pulled up the profile and paused. Ma'am, I'm only seeing individual accounts now. Mr. Randall removed himself from all joint assets 5 months ago. That's impossible, Claire snapped. I never got a notice. He hesitated. According to our records, notifications were sent. But he also updated his address and contact info. She leaned in, voice sharp and cracking. What accounts are left under my name? The banker scrolled. Only one. A dormant travel rewards card. Claire stared. That's it? He nodded gently. She turned, numb, walked back to her car. At the gas station, she swiped her card. Declined. Tried again. Declined. Again. She grabbed Greg's card. Declined. The fuel light blinked on the dashboard like it was laughing. And in that moment, something snapped. She screamed. Raw, unfiltered, fists pounding the steering wheel. You smug little bastard. Not even because he left, but because he planned it so precisely, so quietly, and she never saw it coming. Greg was already sweating through his button-down when his assistant poked her head in. There's a Rebecca Wyatt here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment. Greg's blood ran cold. His voice cracked. Send her in. She walked in without hesitation. Black blazer. No smile. Eyes like a sniper. She didn't wait for permission, she just sat. Martin asked me not to burn the house down, she said, calmly adjusting the folder in her lap. But I believe in transparency. Greg leaned back, feigning confidence, trying to breathe. What do you want? Nothing. This is a professional courtesy. She slid the folder across the desk. Not thick, but heavy. Inside, the printout of the $750 Kelvin loan Claire just discovered, the ethics complaint filed with the state bar, and a letter from Martin. 1 sentence long. This isn't revenge. This is closure. Greg didn't speak. Couldn't. Rebecca stood slowly, smoothing her jacket like it was armor. If I were you, I'd prepare for audit season. He swallowed. You're enjoying this? No, but I am satisfied. She walked out. No theatrics. No raised voice. Just precision. Greg sat in silence. His heart raced, thudding against his ribs, like a warning drum. Meanwhile, Claire was upstairs folding laundry she hadn't touched in months. Martin's old t-shirts, the golf polo he once begged her not to shrink in the dryer. The doorbell rang. She patted down barefoot, expecting a package. Instead, the courier handed her a sleek black envelope with a gold seal. No return address, just her name, written in perfect serif print. Signature, please, the courier asked, tapping the screen. She signed, shut the door, and stared at the envelope. Inside, a single folder. The cover, reallocation agreement, execution copy. She flipped the page. List of marital properties all now transferred to Martin Randall, sole proprietor. Page 2. The prenup clause she forgot she signed. Section 9.3. In the event of documented infidelity, all shared assets are forfeit. She froze, turned the page. Photos, time-stamped, black and white. Claire and Greg, laughing, touching, kissing. On Martin's birthday, she dropped the folder like it burned her. And then came the final page. Her signature. Clear, unmistakable. Hers. She'd signed it 6 months ago. Half distracted, lipstick check in the microwave reflection. Martin had slipped it in like it meant nothing, and she didn't even look. Greg walked in just as Claire stood frozen in the kitchen, folder in hand. Eyes wide, like she'd just seen a ghost. She didn't speak, just turned the pages like she was flipping through the wreckage of a life she used to recognize. He peered over her shoulder. Then he saw them. The photos, the timestamp, the signature. She whispered, like the words were sharp. He had cameras. Greg's face turned gray. And then, the last page. Her signature. Legal. Binding. You signed this. Claire turned to him, trembling. I didn't know what it was. Greg's voice cracked, the horror settling in. She's been planning this with him for weeks, maybe longer. Claire collapsed into the kitchen stool, legs useless. He baited us, she whispered. He knew. Her mind rewound. The dinner, Martin's calm, his coat, that photo. Greg sat beside her, staring, finally realizing they hadn't just lost the game. They'd never been in control. She opened her laptop, desperation bleeding through her fingers. Logged into the condo trust account. Error. Access denied. Retirement fund. Locked. Legal email. Inactive. Personal credit score. Suddenly flagged. Every safety net. Gone. She tried her credit card at the gas station down the road. Declined. Greg's card? Same result. Back in the car. Fists pounding the steering wheel. You smug. Little. Bastard. Greg wasn't doing any better. He was in his office, drowning in spreadsheets and panic, when his assistant knocked once. There's someone here to see you. Rebecca Wyatt. She walked in like death, in designer heels. No greeting, no pleasantries. Martin asked me not to ruin you. But this, she held up a single folder. This is what you deserve. Inside, business loan, ethics complaint, Martin's handwritten note. This isn't revenge. This is closure. Greg stared in silence. Rebecca turned, heels clicking like a countdown. If I were you, I'd prepare for audit season. She didn't slam the door. She didn't need to. Greg slumped in his chair, staring at the folder. Meanwhile, Claire sat in the dark, the glow of her screen, the only light left in her world. She opened Instagram, posted a photo. No makeup, tear-streaked face, mug that said, hope. Caption, when the person you trusted most walks away without warning. Sometimes all you're left with is strength. Hashtag healing, hashtag abandonment, hashtag new chapter. But even that felt hollow. Claire hadn't left the house all day. No Greg, no calls, no friends who weren't quietly watching her fall from grace. Like a car crash they couldn't look away from. Just silence. And the dull hum of consequences. Then, her phone buzzed. A message. From Martin Randall. Her breath hitched. Not a call. Not a voicemail. A video. She tapped the screen. The frame opened to a stretch of storm gray beach. Raw. Windy. The kind of place Martin loved, and she once mocked for being too bleak. Then she saw him, walking calmly along the shoreline, jacket zipped to his chin, hair tousled by the wind. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't angry. He was free. His voice sliced through the wind like a whisper wrapped in thunder. You laughed in my face, like I was nothing, like I wouldn't notice. He stopped walking, faced the camera. You thought I was soft. You thought I'd stay, that I'd clean up your mess and say thank you for it. A pause, his eyes clear as glass. You were wrong. He turned and kept walking. The door works both ways. The screen cut to black. No goodbye, no flourish, just waves and finality. Claire stared at her reflection on the now black screen. That was the first time she saw herself. Not the version she posted online, but the woman Martin saw the night he walked out. This wasn't payback. This was knowledge. 3 weeks later, Greg opened an envelope from his firm. Termination. No severance. No references. Just one line bolded. Irreparable breach of professional trust. Claire, too, got her own love letter. Eviction notice. Utilities cut off. Final warnings from the bank. And as if to salt the wound, the news aired a segment from the Harbor Gala. Martin, in a custom three-piece suit. Rebecca, on his arm. No posing, just power. The anchor smiled. Rumor has it, Randall's backing Wyatt and Belle's national expansion. Greg stared blankly at the screen. Claire whispered, "He's never coming back." Because Martin never needed revenge. He never raised his voice, never threw a punch, never played the victim. He just left, and with nothing but silence. He burned their kingdom to the ground. He'd already won. Sometimes the most brutal revenge is no revenge at all, just walking away and letting the silence say everything they thought you'd never have the courage to speak. So, what's the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever witnessed? Tell us in the comments. And if this story hit deep, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. You don't want to miss what's coming next.